It is a play-in preview between Locked On Heat and Locked On Hornets. One of these teams is happy to be here. One of these teams, not so much.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
All right, I'm Wes Goldberg here with David Ramil and Walker Mill of Locked On Hornets. Me and David cover the Heat over at Locked On Heat. And this is a fantastic crossover episode that we have prepared for you today. We're going to break down tonight's 9-10 play-in game between the Heat and the Hornets. The winner advances, faces the loser of Wednesday's game between the 76ers and the Orlando Magic. And the loser season comes to an end. But before we break down both sides of the ball in this matchup, which some would describe as maybe a rivalry, maybe some others wouldn't, I want to talk about how we got here. The regular season's over. In that regular season, the Heat 3-1 against the Hornets. And at first glance, you would say, wow, Miami's got the edge. They're 3-1 against the Hornets. But David, we know that not to be true necessarily.
Absolutely. Whatever we saw at the beginning of the season is not the same as what we're watching now, especially on the Charlotte end of things. Miami, clearly a different team as well. Their defense has been abysmal over the last few weeks of the regular season. They've lost whatever energy and momentum they had built at the start of the year, and they're facing a much tougher challenge now with Charlotte playing as well as they have over the last 3 months of the season.
So, Walker, before we do a deep dive into this matchup, what is the biggest thing that has changed for Charlotte over the course of the season?
Look, it's health. We've been asking for health for the last 3 years. We were denied it each season. Looks like the fourth time is the charm around here because LaMelo was even a little banged up at the beginning of the year when he had another ankle injury against Toronto, but then came back. Brandon Miller, after missing some time, he came back. Kon Knueppel's played every single game except for one after he had an ankle injury. And after you have all of these guys, all of these high draft picks that are healthy and on the floor at the same time, it looks like this. It allows the Hornets to see some level of proof of concept in that they have drafted talented players, that if they can stay on the floor all at the same time and you have this nucleus on top of supplementing that core talent with second-round draft picks like Kalkbrenner and Sion James and Moussa Diabate just being unleashed to the world as soon as he entered the starting lineup. That was December 23rd, I believe. And you've seen this team, this Hornets team, play like one of the best squads in the NBA since January 1st. I think it's health. I think it's coaching. I think it's also just knocking the draft. I mean, just hitting it out of the park with what you got in Kon Knueppel and also what you had with a couple of those second round selections.
David, is Kon the rookie of the year, or is it Cooper Flag?
Come on, David.
I think it's Kon. I think the way he's played, the way he's stabilized things in Charlotte, the fact that he's had, I think, a greater impact over the course of the season. Like the numbers are better for Flag, but at the same time, I think Knueppel has just done a better job of being a much more advanced player and contributing to actual winning basketball. So that he's been my vote for the last few months.
I'm guessing, Walker, I know your vote on this.
Yeah, I think it's Cooper. You know, I think, yeah, right. I mean, come on. I can't.
Derek Queen
do
doesn't get enough love for this.
I think Derek Queen finally, I'm going to be the guy that gives him some love. Not only is he first team all rookie, he's the first rookie in this class. It's Kon Knueppel for me, of course, but also, man, just look, we've done whole shows on this. I'm going to go off on a tangent if I allow myself to, so I need to try to fine tune this thing. The impact around here is unbelievable, guys. Like Kon coming in and being so focused just from a demeanor standpoint. You can poo-poo it. I get it. Like nobody gets to see it. And I totally understand that. I might be one to do that for a rookie that balled out in Dallas or some other team that I don't cover every single day. Like I totally understand that part. But then even if we just restrict it to what he's doing on the court, the effect that he has allowing everybody else to be so much better at what they do because of Kon's gravity. And guys, I mean, they're playing defense against him like he's the number one option at times where I feel like teams are trying to take away Kon as much as possible. And they're almost letting LaMelo and Brandon cook to a certain degree because if Kon is getting going, then it has greatly improved their chances at winning before. Like Joe Mazzulla's trying to take him away. We've seen this from a bunch of teams where they're treating him like that kind of guy, the number one option on a team that is a 44 win squad in the NBA. Like there are a whole bunch of different numbers we could reference. there are a million other points, but yeah, I mean, I'm going to
There's
go
a
with
comparison that you're stopping short of. I could tell.
You mean like another rookie that he's contending with? I don't know. Look, Cooper's.
No, I'm talking about like the effect that you're talking about on the offense is Steph-like, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I'll ask you guys this.
You didn't say it.
I'll ask you guys this. Are you sure outside of Steph Curry, there's a better shooter in the NBA than Kon?
So I've been saying for years that Tyler Herro is the best shooter in the league outside of the Bay Area.
Yeah.
And Kon is giving him a run now for that money. I need to see it more.
Volume makes sense. I get that.
But there's no doubt the effect that he has. And the fact that he's doing this the moment he touches ground in the NBA is going to establish a reputation as this ultimate floor spacer going forward for Charlotte. And you mentioned the effect that he has on the team and just the outlook that this Hornets team has. I mean, everything feels like good vibes right now for Charlotte. Even if it sounds like, talking to some Hornets fans, and I haven't talked to you specifically, Walker, but like, even if you lose in the play-in, it'll be disappointing, of course. But you guys have like the bigger picture in mind. It's like, wow, look at what we're building here. Not with just Kon, but Kalkbrenner, getting him, and James also. Like, what a draft class to set yourself up for the future.
Yeah, great philosophical question that we've been exploring for the past, I would say, probably 2 months. How disappointing of a season will it be if they get bounced in the play-in tournament? Because this is a 44-win ball club. That's usually good enough to get you at least the 7th seed. If you go back over the last 10 years or so, we've seen how improved the Eastern Conference is. Probably some inflated wins because of all the tanking teams. Okay, but even still, the Hornets, they're totally legitimate with all the numbers that they've given you since the turn of the calendar, even specifically. So the Hornets, they're a good basketball team. And it's different than the last time that the Hornets played the Heat in a playoff series, but even more so the last time they got to the play-in twice and got bounced by 20 points in each of those games. This feels sustainable because of the youth that is within the core. And it feels like since new ownership came in, we call him Schlotkin affectionately around here. It's Rick Schnall and Gabe Plotkin. They're together. It's this weird format where you have two majority owners that work in tandem with one another. They sit next to each other at every game. It's kind of funny to see them around, but they've done a great job at hiring the right people in Jeff Peterson, hiring the right coach in Charles Lee, drafting the right people in Kon Knueppel. And I've talked about all of these small victories leading to the big ones, like what you've seen since January 1st. And so I wouldn't be happy losing in the play-in. Would I put it in perspective? Yeah, this season is not a failure. It's going to be tough if there's a blowout in the play-in, but even so, I think 24 hours after a potential loss like that, we would all realize this is not a failure of a season. Right. It's extremely successful because of the pain that we've suffered for quite some time around here. It doesn't look like that's going to be happening anymore. I'll knock on wood just to keep karma on my side, but I think it's the prophecy that seems to be forming in front of us here with all the positive stuff that's happening around.
David, dramatic beat switch in the middle of this segment. We're going to bring it down for a second. Going from good vibes in Charlotte to a team immensely disappointed to even have to play this game tonight. The Miami Heat have been publicly saying that they don't want to be here. Bam Adebayo most prominently being like, I don't want to be in the play-in again. The Heat, 4th straight year in the play-in. They have won every year that they've been in the play-in. Tyler Herro called them the play-in kings the other day. But, the king of what, right?
Yeah. I guess the king of the dub, basically. Look, I mean, you mentioned the possibility of a blowout.
Like Borat in the chair being like king of the castle. Like, what? It's like,
very nice.
Welcome to your Motel 6. Yeah. Congrats. You're the Motel 6 in the playoffs.
There's no blowout happening today. If Miami somehow finds a way to win, it would be by eking out a very narrow victory there, just because that's the way they've played all season. They don't beat up on good teams, and Charlotte is a good team. They've barely won against good teams, to be honest with you. The record against that kind of reflects it. And yes, Wes, to your point, the vibes in Miami, not nearly as optimistic here because, again, this is just another season where they've gone through the same process, whether it was Jimmy Butler on the roster, not Jimmy Butler, trading Jimmy Butler, and now this kind of season where they started off with this incredible offense and everybody's really enthusiastic about what we saw from this Heat team. And then it's the same result all over again for a 4th straight season. So it doesn't seem like anything they can do is enough for them to change the outcome of the regular season where they wind up in the play-in tournament. And yes, Bam has been very public about that. I think most of the teams, as you've talked about before, most of the players, not really excited about this opportunity. And You know what? I'm not sure what to expect from this group because they've been so inconsistent all season long. And because they've just shown like this total lack of energy, sense of urgency going into the play-in tournament. I'm not sure if they actually even want to win this. Like on a base level as professional athletes, sure. But do they have that kind of energy, the momentum, the kind of excitement about, yeah, you know what, we have to win a couple games. And then once the playoffs emerge, then, if we're in it, who knows what can happen. I don't see it from this group. Like this is a group that wanted to be able to achieve a better record than they did, and yet they let a few games slip away towards the end of the season there, and they've just lost any kind of momentum that they started off with. It's been a very disappointing year for them, 100%.
This is a team that has stumbled over the last 20 games into the play-in, right? Like they were up there, potentially getting the 5th or 6th seed. I know Charlotte was sort of in the mix there too for that, and every team has their stumbles over the course of the regular season, but for the Heat, it just sort of feels like this whole thing has fizzled out, especially disappointingly so after a 14-7 start, and we were so excited about this up-tempo offense and everything that was happening with that. And to your point, David, like you could say that you want to do it, and obviously the Heat are going to say that they want to win. And hey, we've been in here before. We've made a run out of the play-in tournament before. This isn't how we wanted it to be, but now that we're here, Spo is saying this stuff publicly. It's like, hey, now that we're here, it's just time to embrace it. It's like the NCAA tournament. Like he's trying to speak it into existence, right? He's trying to jazz his team up a little bit here, where being around that team, it's very hard to feel those kind of vibes emanating from that. But look, one win kind of switches things. You never know. We're going to talk about how both of these teams can win this winner stay alive, winner go home game. There we go. Winner go home game. When the Hornets have the ball, how can the Heat defend them? Kon Knueppel, LaMelo Ball, Brandon Miller. It's going to be a tough challenge. We're going to talk about it next.
Today's episode is brought to you by TurboTax. It's tax time, but for a lot of us, the old ways of doing taxes is a lot. Trying to book an appointment that's not the most convenient. Sitting in a waiting room with a stack of papers, emailing back and forth and wondering if they really get your situation. But this year, you're getting a major upgrade. Intuit TurboTax now has in-person locations nationwide. You can meet face-to-face with a real tax expert, and your documents get uploaded straight to your TurboTax app on the spot. And just like that, you're done. Your TurboTax expert works to get you every dollar you deserve while you get real-time notifications as you go about your day. It's the relief of walking in and meeting a real person and walking out knowing your taxes are being handled right. So head to turbotax.com/local to find a store near you and book your appointment. We'll be right back.
Back here with a crossover episode between Locked On Heat and Locked On Hornets. All right, time for the breakdown here of this game specifically. We're going to start with when the Hornets have the ball. So we'll talk about when Charlotte's offense. We'll talk about Miami's defense in this segment. And then the next segment, we're going to flip it. We're going to talk about when the Heat have the ball. How can they score? How can Charlotte try to defend them? So Hornets have the ball. What are you watching for when the Hornets are on offense, Walker?
Taking care of the basketball specifically second half, and then, okay, let's fine tune it even more. Fourth quarter, that has been a real issue for this Hornets team all season long. The turnovers have been an issue relatively throughout a lot of these games, especially in the games recently against the best opponents. But in the second half and in the fourth quarter, man, that's when they've lost some of these matchups. I'll go back to, I guess, the Knicks game that they won at the Spectrum Center before they then had a back-to-back loss against Philly and Boston following that. Against the Knicks, there were about 9 possessions in a row, and then in 6 or 7 of those 9 possessions, they had a turnover in the fourth quarter. Kobe White was excellent. End of quarter Kobe is a real thing, and so the fact that he was able to take over a little bit, that staved the Knicks away from winning that ball game. But it happened against Philly where they turned it over too much. Perimeter defense tightening, being real physical at the point of attack, bothering some of the ball handlers. You saw that happen against Philly and Boston. And then on the road in Boston, one of the last few games that the Hornets played, it was a tie ball game. LaMelo was going off. It was great stuff through the first 3 quarters. And then in the fourth quarter, they turned it over a little too much. Jason Tatum take over, and then you see how the Hornets lose in that final period. Same thing happens in the last game that they had against Detroit. It was a tight game going back and forth, and then in the fourth quarter, Pistons take over. clearly extremely physical basketball team, and it bothered him again. So there have been a few messages in some of these post-game pressers about how these physical basketball teams have bothered some of the ball handlers. LaMelo not as much as Kon, who has a little bit of a turnover problem. Brandon Miller can get stuck, can stall out, trying to drive and get downhill. I think he's been better at that. I think he's been a lot better probing, but even still, he can be prone to coughing up the basketball. So that's what I'm going to be watching for once we get to the second half. And then offensively, just overall, they can still give you a lot of actions to get some guys downhill and then kick out quite a bit. They get to the paint and then they kick out, and that's been their offense, and it's been really effective. But if they're not hitting their threes, it's been pretty tough to win. So, pretty simple things that you're looking at with this Hornets team. But I think what Charles Lee does is, it's not simple in that it's easy to stop by any means, but the system they run is simple in that, hey, just move around all the time. How about you just never stop moving? We're going to put these defenders in this entire indecision-making progress. Hey, I need to think about this for half a second. I need to think about that for half a second. All that adds up to where there's a little bit of space, and then shooters have enough space for them to, knock it down. So there's still going to be a lot of action all throughout. And I think that's how they're going to be able to score, hit the 3-pointers. But man, they got to limit the turnovers because it's hurt them a lot against some of the better opponents in the league.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game because the Heat do a tremendous job of forcing turnovers. They're not Detroit Pistons, Oklahoma City level Thunder of that, but they do a pretty good job of forcing turnovers and then, more importantly, scoring off of those turnovers. At the same time, they give up a lot of threes. And so it'll be kind of this rubber hits the road type of situation where it's like, all right, are we going to be the team that gets the turnovers and kind of wins this battle? Or are we going to be the team that just, we spring a leak and next thing you know, Charlotte's just raining threes all over us, which is what happened the last time that these teams met. And Bam Adebayo didn't play in one of these games during the regular season, but I'm interested to see what the matchups are going to be here because they've been starting, the Heat have Kel'el Ware at the 5 and playing Bam at the 4 over the last couple of games. And it sounds like, at least now, Spo was asked point blank, "Is this what he's going to do in this play-in game?" And he's like, understandably, he's keeping it a little bit of a secret right now. It kind of sounds like he might be leaning in that direction. Mm-hmm. And if that's the case, the matchups here are going to be really interesting because you figure Davion will get the LaMelo matchup, and he's going to fight over every single screen that LaMelo's going over. We know that LaMelo is going to run that high ball screen action and things like that. But then that's going to leave Andrew Wiggins on Brandon Miller. Bam, I guess, will just play Bridges. Yeah. So is Tyler Herro going to be chasing Kon Knueppel around? That's my issue. And David, I know we've talked about this coming into the game. It's like, you start where it kind of mixes. The last time these teams played, Norm Powell was the guy chasing Kon around for most of the game. And then Pelle Larsson got handed that baton. And both of them did an okay job. Norm's not a stout defender, but he's not Tyler Herro either. So, yeah, it's a tough decision, I think, for Spo. Like, do you go with the starting 5 in order to try to combat Charlotte's great defensive rebounding and try to create some size and create some sort of advantage there? Or do you say, like, we really can't live with Tyler Herro and Kon? Or maybe do you switch up the matchups in some way, David?
Well, I guess it all depends, right? I mean, we're still wondering whether or not they're going to wind up going with Kel'el Ware as a starter. And I think they're kind of trending in that direction. So if that's the case, I think Spo has had in the past, his philosophy is always to try to lean into their strengths, to try to create that advantage there. And I guess that he believes that maybe they'll be able to put an advantage with Ware starting there. But that is a challenge. And I'm not sure if we saw Ware kind of struggle in that role in their last matchup, where we're starting in place of Bam because Bam was out at that game. And so I don't think Ware had a particularly good game there. So is it really an advantage in the first place? And I think that's the bottom line, is whether or not you're determining if Khalil's creating some kind of edge for Miami, he has to play at his very best. And we haven't seen that from him consistently. There's just been those moments there where he just winds up not being much of a factor, whether he's just not active rebounding, especially against a high energy guy like Diabate. Can he box him out? Can he be able to pull down those boards and kind of help Miami end possessions in that way and be able to kind of generate more easy offense? So I don't know. I don't know which way they're planning on leaning. My guess would be that they're probably going to continue to start Ware, but I'm not sure that really helps Miami ultimately. But we'll determine that, I guess, after the game.
Yeah, Walker. I mean, it's a tough. Like, what historically has given Charlotte's offense the biggest problems? Like what kind of defense, right? You were mentioning the turnovers, but that seems like a little bit maybe that's on them. Like what kind of defenses do you see giving Charlotte the most problems?
No, I think I think what you see is the strong defenders at the point of attack, just because they might be taller, but they're a little bit still slight in frame with some of these guys like LaMelo, like Brandon Miller, and Kon. While Kon is really strong, man, he absorbs contact quite well. He's also a little banged up right now, and I think it's bothering him. The shooting has gone down just a smidge, especially compared to his 42% three-point percentage overall this year. We've seen him not actually shoot all that well from twos, which he had been really tough. Was that, I think, through 65 games or so, shooting 57% on twos. That's come down quite a bit. And I think that has to do with him feeling the effects of his back injury. He did have a banged up ankle. I don't know if that's anything that's bothering him now, but something that wouldn't surprise me, especially since he's played over double the minutes that he did all season at Duke just last year, right? Like the rookie wall, we never feel that the rookie wall is going to hit these guys in the postseason. It might be doing that now just because, now not only have you had to play over 30 minutes a game, you've played every game except for one, but now we're going into high pressure situations in 2 play-in games, potentially if you win the first one. Then you got to go play a playoff series. So that's interesting to watch. And all that to say, defensively, man, they just have to use their bodies against all of these ball handlers a ton. That's what's given them real issues. Like I think Charles Lee and this team, they've been smart enough with their offense to get a bunch of the shots that they want to, especially out there on the 3-point line. I think Brandon has found his spots in the mid-range, and he's been hitting a little bit more so on twos, finishing high off the glass. And Kobe White has been a godsend, man. I said it yesterday. I think I'm ready to say, outside of LaMelo, he's as important a ball player the Hornets have on their team right now. With all the offense that he's brought to the squad, they need that ball handler when LaMelo's off the bench. But it's really just, are you physical with these ball handlers and trying to keep them out of the paint? And if you do, then that's been something that the Hornets have struggled with when they have struggled scoring the basketball, which isn't often, by the way. But when it's happened, that's what they've struggled with.
Yeah, David, it feels like that's a lot on Davion and Bam to be physical with these Charlotte Hornets offensive players. But on the flip side, the other Heat defenders don't necessarily bring it. Pella, I guess, if he comes off the bench, is another guy who can get physical with you. But other than that, it'll be really interesting. I also expect, by the way, to see quite a bit of zone from Miami. When all else fails, they will go to the zone.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that was what the big difference was in the fourth quarter of that win that you guys had over the Hornets, right? It was Tyler Herro being unable to miss. Incredible shot making from Herro in that 128-120 win, 122. And then so nobody plays zone against the Hornets because they'll crush that. That's not what you do.
Right.
Not against a great 3-point shooting team, except of course it's an active zone and they didn't execute well at all. They weren't ready for it. And so, yeah, it's a great point. Will Eric Spoelstra go back to that card because it worked so well in the win that you had 2 meetings ago? It's a great point to bring up.
It's interesting because you're right. I was just having this conversation with somebody the other day, and it was like the Heat, they play zone when you're not supposed to. Mm-hmm. When teams are shooting threes against them, they'll go to zone. And to your point, it's a little bit of a different kind of zone, right? They'll play really high up. They'll meet you like at 3/4 court usually, or on your side of the half court line, and then they'll press you a little bit. But they're also going to contest with multiple bodies a lot, these 3-point shots, which is really interesting. And they believe, because they practiced it so much, by the way, that they can rebound at a high level in that zone. So they quite like it, and the results speak for themselves over the last few years. These are 2 of the top 10 offenses in the league over the last 15 or so games. We're going to flip it around. How can the Hornets stop a Heat offense that has been one of the few things in Miami trending in the right direction lately? We'll talk about that next.
Today's episode is brought to you by Rocket Money. If you've ever opened your bank account and thought, where did all my money go? Well, you're not alone. Keeping track of subscriptions, spending, and bills can get overwhelming fast, and that's where Rocket Money comes in, helping you take control of your finances all in one place. It tracks all of your subscriptions in one spot and helps you cancel the ones you don't need with just a few taps. It automatically categorizes your spending so you can actually see where your money is going, and you can set up budgets, get alerts, and stay on top of upcoming bills. It just makes everything feel more organized and gives you a clear picture of your finances day to day. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Let Rocket Money help you reach your financial goals faster. Join in today at Rocket Money rocketmoney.com/lockedon. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Today's episode is also brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. If you've got a sweet tooth like I do, so you know how tough it is to find that perfect treat without all the sugar. And that's why the Fruity Rainbow 5 Hour Energy Shot brings that nostalgic flavor back in a whole new way. Fruity Rainbow 5 Hour Energy Shots treat your taste buds to an explosion of fruity flavor with a tasty caffeine kick. It's a quick, easy way to satisfy that sweet craving while keeping things simple and on the go. A zero sugar treat that sweet tooth approves. And you'll like how convenient it is too. It's just a small portable shot you can grab whenever you need a little pick-me-up in the middle of the day. It's become my go-to when I want something sweet without having to go overboard. So get candy-flavored chaos with Fruity Rainbow 5 Hour Energy Shots, available online or at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. We'll be right back.
Back here with a Locked On Heat, Locked On Hornets crossover, talking about this 9-10 play-in matchup Tuesday night between the Heat and the Hornets. That game will be played in Charlotte. Winner advances to the next round of the play-in tournament. Will face the loser of the 7-8 game between the Sixers and the Magic. The loser goes home. Their season is over. David, we're going to flip it around here. When the Heat have the ball, they've got to score against a Charlotte defense that is not necessarily their strength, but the Hornets are an elite defensive rebounding team. They have guys who can at least move around quite a bit, even if they don't have a single elite, on-ball stopper there. Miami, they've been one of the top offenses in the league over the last 15, 20 games. Things tend to be working for them. They seem to be healthy, right? Even Pelle Larsson at practice yesterday said that he's expecting to play. The last time we saw the Heat, they started Davion Mitchell, Tyler Herro, Andrew Wiggins, Bam Adebayo, and Khalil Ware. Obviously, we've already talked about whether those be the starting lineup or not. But to me, it comes down to Tyler Herro making shots the way he did last time. What about you?
Yeah, I think it's huge. Well, we also talked about the turnover battle, and I think that's crucial for Miami because so much of that is kind of been the baseline for their offense, being able to ignite those fast break opportunities, pick up the pace a little bit. If they can force those turnovers and get those easy transition buckets, it makes things so easy for an offense that does tend to bog down a little bit. When they don't have the kind of shooting that they depend on a little too heavily, they're basically reduced to a one-on-one type offense where they try to attack and try to generate some easy looks at the basket or to have to spray out to shooters. But if those shooters aren't connecting, Miami's offense does tend to get very stagnant. So being able to maximize those turnovers and be able to ignite and juice up some of those offensive numbers is going to be crucial for them. But yeah, ultimately, Tyler needs to be the guy who needs to be able to knock down those shots. But I'm also looking at Bam. I wouldn't be surprised if Bam tries to hit a three-pointer early on to try and draw Diabate away from the rim a little bit, maybe change things up a little bit, because we've seen with him when he has that three-point shot going down early that he gets a little bit more comfortable. He feels a little bit more in rhythm and a little bit more aggressive. But on a day like today, when he really needs to be at his very best, I think that's crucial for Miami, for him to be able to get going early on and kind of set the tone for this team.
I'm kind of split on whether or not I want to see Bam and Ware start shooting threes in this game, because on one hand, obviously you want to try to draw Moose out. You want to try to get Kalkbrenner out of the paint and these guys. I don't want them to fall in love with it either. And it feels like it's one or the other with these guys every single night. It's like, are you going to try to be Kon Knueppel tonight, or are you going to try to play as a center tonight? And it's a little one or the other. Walker, when Miami's on offense, what are you watching for?
Well, I mean, no, it's a good point. Khalil Ware, in the win that Miami had, I think he had 5 3 attempts, only hit one. But we've seen this team be a little susceptible to shooting bigs all year long, because when Moose is in, Musa can hang out there on the perimeter. In fact, the Hornets rely on it because they switch all the time when Moose is in the game. And so when they're switching, you'll see a lot of times, man, Musa is just kind of our perimeter stopper too around here, and they'll just leave him on an island. They're not going to try to force the ball out of anybody's hand that got their mismatch, quote unquote, against Moose. They trust him in handling whoever it is. And I mean whoever. It's Jalen Brunson, it's Luka Doncic, it's Jason Tatum. Cool, all right? We're going to trust you here because we certainly don't want to send help and then, have them find the open cut or whatever it may be. The other thing is you get Musa out of the paint just to, keep him from rebounding the basketball, which is huge. Right. I'm also looking at if they're going to be attacking Kon a lot, because Kon is not a bad defender, but even still teams are testing him a lot more and trying to get their mismatches on him. And they can beat him off of the drive just because they're a little bit quicker. And I think we've seen that a little bit more. I'll remind you again, Kon being banged up does worry me a little, both offensively and defensively. And they're going to play him 30 minutes. And I don't know if I'm making too much of that because they still are relying on him a lot. It's just we have seen him wear the back brace a lot and then go check in at the scores table and then take it off before going into the game. I guess I'd rather you be to the point where you're not wearing it. I think that is true now, but for a while he was wearing it. So yeah, just something to take note of for me is how much are they going to be attacking Kon more so. And the differences in Musa and Kalkbrenner being in the game, right? Like it's such a stark difference between both of those guys. They are night and day different defenders, with Kalkbrenner just letting whoever is out there on the perimeter, just if it's Bam, if it's Kalel, okay, like this is our poison, man. We don't want Kalkbrenner to go out there because Bam can certainly take him off the dribble. Kalel could if he wanted to. Kalkbrenner not the fastest, but he has been good at protecting the rim. Even still, teams are attacking him off of that deep drop. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But how much do they go after Kon? I think is going to be a big question as well.
I think on both sides, the rebounding battle is going to be such a huge factor in this, specifically when those rebounds come and how these teams can run off of these rebounds or get in transition. The fact that if Bam and Ware are trying to draw Kalkbrenner and Moose away from the basket, that limits Charlotte's great defensive rebounding a little bit. And on the flip side, when Miami's on defense and they get that defensive rebound, they're really good at running off of those defensive rebounds and scoring off live rebounds. And Charlotte's not horrible at defending in transition off live rebounds, but they're like bottom half of the league. They're a little susceptible in allowing those opportunities. And so the Heat are going to be pushing that as a potential advantage point, and because they do every night, regardless of matchup. It's something that they're going to try to do. I think Wiggins is potentially a big guy in this matchup. His ability to run down the floor. He's still this crazy athlete when he decides that he wants to be, right? Like when he turns the car on, it goes. But you got to see it from him. And David, we know it hasn't been like the most inspiring last week for Wiggs, but maybe he was sandbagging us. Maybe he was sort of waiting for the playoffs to unleash it. I don't know.
Possibly, but then that's where a guy like Pella kind of, I think, really is a big X factor, because coming off the bench, he does provide that energy. And again, maybe it's a little reductive to say so, but he does have to be able to hit that outside shot. He gets a lot more effective, but his ability to get to the rim, finish there at a high level, maybe draw some contact, get a couple foul calls his way. It's really been a huge swing factor for Miami over the course of the season, where he just is able to generate that offense and just kind of provide a little bit of energy, especially coming off that bench. We've seen it from him as a starter, a little bit less so coming off the bench, but I think that bench unit with him, Norm Powell, and if Khalil winds up starting, who knows, Jaime Jaquez, obviously, those guys are going to be such a huge factor for Miami. Yeah.
Jaime's going to be huge in this game, I think. Absolutely. I mean, if he's going to be able to score 15 to 20 points and, he ended the season on a real high note, that's a guy who could potentially make a difference in this game too, Walker. So, all right, last guy, I think Bam, I think we've talked around it. Bam has to have a big game for Miami. There's no, both ends of the floor. It has to be a classic, masterclass two-way Bam game, I think, for the Heat to have a chance in this one. We'll end the show on predictions, Walker. Start with you.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be tough for either one of us to go against our teams here, and I totally understand that. I think with the way that the Hornets have been playing in the ascension,
tough, really.
Not that tough. Fair enough. Look, I've been there. In fact, I live there. I still have property on that island. I'm not selling it just quite yet, but now it's weird because I'm starting to float away from this island and finally find
you're Tom Hanks at the end of Castaway.
It's beautiful.
You've got a lighter now.
Yeah, sorry, I'm finding new friends. Wilson is just drifting away from me, and it's okay. Really, I need new friends around here, and we have them with Kon, with the way that he has. And even with the injuries, even still, LaMelo, the way that he's played the second rounders, it's been excellent. I think the Hornets win this game. I think offensively, they're just so gifted. I think this team, the way that you guys describe the Heat's mindset, and it makes sense because you have seen the promised land a couple of times, right? You guys have made these deep playoff runs. The Hornets have not. And I love this team's mentality right now. These guys are real focused, and I think they're focused in the right way. I think they all have this great camaraderie with one another, and also are going to play 1,000%. Like LaMelo defensively, he's making these Ed Reed type steals defensively because the basketball instincts. I think watch out for the LaMelo forced turnovers, which is kind of, we've not talked really about that in his career before, but that's a thing now, which has been really fun to watch. Turning his instinctual steals into these fast break opportunities. And so because this team, man, the right mentality, I'm going to go with the Hornets winning in a decently high scoring game.
It's a 5.5 point spread last time I checked on FanDuel. My Charlotte, the favorites at home. The David prediction.
Yeah, it's tough to go against Charlotte at this point, given everything we described about Miami and the struggles. They might make it more competitive than I would have expected, despite what we've seen from them over the last few weeks. But ultimately, I think Charlotte gets the edge at home. Miami has struggled on the road, and there's just too many things that have to break right for a team that just doesn't seem to have the energy or motivation. Maybe they'll find it. Maybe they've already got it. Maybe they're expecting something to flip the switch a little bit in the play-in tournament that leads to a playoff run again, like we've seen in the past. But I just don't see it, so I'm predicting Charlotte in a pretty close game.
To your point, Miami 17-24 on the road this season. I think there's more ways for this game to go right for the Hornets than it is to go right for the Heat, right? Like the Hornets just have more avenues to a win than Miami does. It feels like everything, to your point, David, has to go right for Miami to get this win. I know they're 3-1 against the Hornets this season. There'll be a lot of Heat fans that'll talk about that. I'm sure it'll be all. That is a fake stat. Throw it out. They played the Hornets twice in the first 3 weeks of the season before the Hornets figured out who they are. And frankly, before the Heat kind of came back down to earth too, right? Like the Heat were at a high note and the Hornets were on their low of the season. So that said, I think the Heat have the best player in the game in Bam Adebayo. He's capable of swinging this game by himself. He is that good when he's totally dialed in. And David, we talked about this the other night. In the locker room, after that Heat's game against the Hawks, the Heat win that game. They need Orlando to beat Boston to make sure that this game gets pushed from Tuesday to Wednesday. They get one extra day of rest. Everybody in that locker room was upset and pissed off at the Orlando Magic for throwing away that game against the Celtics, except for one guy. It was Bam. He did not care. This guy is built for these moments. He wants these moments, and as bad as the vibes have been in Miami lately, we have seen them turn things around time and time again in these exact moments. The Heat live for these moments, and yet I still have the Hornets. I think the Hornets are
Nice job. Nice job. Had no clue where you were going. I like it.
Who knows? I'll be the one guy. I'll be the one guy that takes the Heat. I think the Hornets are going to win, but if we're keeping track here, give me the Heat, so at least I could be a little bit different. And we don't. That's good for you, Walker. The last thing you want is a sweep.
I save the graphic, right? I know I don't know if we're putting the logos up in post production, but I'm glad that you're able to save the graphic for us because that's right. If we all pick the Hornets, then that would spell instant doom.
Thanks for tuning in today to a special crossover episode of Locked On Heat and Locked On Hornets. Thanks. Make sure you subscribe, follow both of these shows for all the coverage that you need for both of these teams throughout the playoffs and obviously the off season. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you later.